Hi, I'm Diane McGarry with Drake Arts. With me today are co-host Tom McGarry, flautist Trisha Craig, and ASL interpreter Gay. Flautist Trisha specializes in 20th century and contemporary repertoire and performs in solo, chamber, and large ensemble settings in Ireland and throughout New England. She is known for bringing the music and its time periods to life while engaging the audience in lively conversations. For 22 years, Miss Craig was the owner and director of Music Makers, a music school in the New Hampshire seacoast. She also teaches flute and conducts. She holds a Bachelor of Music from Ithaca College and a Master's of Music from Longy School of Music. Trisha, I'm so glad that you could be with us again.
Hi, I'm so glad to be with you again too. Thank you.
So you're doing a special type of performance for us this year.
I'm so excited. It's so fun. Uh, and I was afraid that it might just be fun for me, but it has also been really fun for my accompanist and for my students. We've been talking about this recital. This is a blast. What this recital is, and I'll explain it. I've been playing this year. I've been playing for 50 years, and
Hey!
Yay,
thank
wow.
you. I can't believe it. And but here I am. And there's this book that I teach out of all the time. I just call it the yellow book because it is indeed yellow. And it has a lot of repertoire in it that is really great for early advanced students so that they can have something to strive for without being extraordinarily long. So the pieces are all fairly short. And there's 24 of them. The book is called 24 Short Concert Pieces. And I
Mm,
think for the recital, so what I've always wanted to do is a yellow book recital.
mm,
And so my accompanist, who has played with my students for all these years, and I got together and put together. I think we ended up with 12 or 14 of the pieces for this recital, and put them in an order that makes it kind of fun. And we've had a blast putting this together. It was a real treat for us.
It
mm.
was a treat for us to listen to too. It was so much fun. And the diversity of the pieces is great. And as I said before in your intro, you talk about the pieces and the music in such a wonderful, interesting way.
Yeah, thank you. I like to really involve the audience anytime I perform, and I think of my performances as an informants where
Hmm.
they get informed and they learn because that's how you enjoy it more. If you
Sure.
know what you're going to hear, if you know what to listen for, if you know a little
Mm,
bit about the background, then the piece is even more yummy because you're waiting to hear the elements that go along with what I just explained.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to talk about some of the pieces or how you came to flute for so long? I mean, there's so many different instruments that people play, but um,
I'll tell a big secret about the flute. My
okay.
mother, I never told my mother even before she passed away. I should have told her. But when I was 8, okay, so now do the math. You know how old I am. When I was 8, they brought all the instruments to school and played them for us. And there was one that I just fell in love with. It was, I know now that it was a trumpet.
oh wow.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
And I thought this thing was fantastic. And so when I went home with the sheet of instruments that you could sign up to to get to start renting them, and I told my mom that I would like to do it, and she was all excited. She knew we had this program, and so she said, "What instrument would you like?" And I couldn't remember what it was called.
oh,
And I
wow.
was nervous because I didn't think my mother would like such a loud thing in the house. And
Oh gosh.
so I was like, it's called the flute. And she went, oh, that's a beautiful
Uh,
instrument. And I was like, really? Oh, okay. So she ordered it for me. And, I don't know how many weeks later it arrived. And when I was walking home from the school bus, we always went around to the side door to come in, but my mom opened the front door for me to come in. So I knew something big was happening. I go in
oh,
the front door and she's holding this case, right? This
I know they're very little cases.
case. And she's like, it's here, your flute is here. And she shows me the case. And I just remember looking at this and saying, it how does it fit in that case? It doesn't fit in
mm,
that case.
mm,
And she said, well, it comes apart. and I'm trying to picture the bell. I just remember I have this vivid memory of staring at this case and a pit in my stomach, and I'm
Oh.
trying to picture the bell apart in this case.
Mm.
God, she was so sweet.
God. And my mom was so excited. So she opens the case. And there it is, my flute.
And no
and,
bell.
and she was so happy. I never told her.
Uh,
And so I just started playing the flute. And I've actually never in my life even tried a trumpet.
Oh, wow.
huh. You never tried a trumpet or the mouthpiece or anything?
No, I've never done it. And people have said, "Oh, you should try." And I think I was meant to play the flute. I'm fine.
Well, you
I've
are a
coached.
wonderful flautist.
Thank you. And maybe I would have been awful at the trumpet. I mean, who knows why things happen? But my mom went to her grave without knowing that story. I
Oh.
never told her because she's always had this idea of how I chose the flute, and it's completely different
Mm.
from what actually happened when I was a child. So I just let her live with
Have
it
it.
that way.
Yeah, of course. Of
Yeah.
course. She
Yeah.
would have been like, oh, that's
So that's how I chose the flute. And I had a hard time learning it. So they got me a private teacher early on. And so I just worked really hard and got better and better. And I think over all these years, I mean, the thing I hate the most about being a musician is practicing. There's nothing worse than being alone in a room doing something really hard for an extended period of time. It's just
oh.
awful. Just awful. So but what has happened over the years is I have become hooked on being really good. And you can only be good at it if you do the practice time.
Wow.
So the practice is the method to getting all that stage time.
Right.
And I mean, even better, the collaborative things I get to do with other musicians like Barb, who, my students have always been blessed to be able to work with her and to be able to play this concert with her. We've done other concerts too, of course, but this was really fun. And then I play regularly with the Irish Tenors. I got to perform with Judy Collins last spring. I played with Madeleine Peyroux. I've played with Celtic Woman, and being able to collaborate at that level. I mean, if I hadn't practiced, I wouldn't be able to do that. So the practicing is the evil behind the scenes to
Mm.
make it possible to do all the other stuff.
That's funny. For me, the analogy for me personally would be putting up with a cold in the winter because you get the snow. And I
Uh-huh.
love snow. It's so beautiful, but you're not going to have snow unless you have like 30, 20 degrees out or less.
Right, exactly. I love the snow too. But you know what I don't like is the ice. I get scared slipping and
Yeah.
but so you deal with that because you love the snow and you get to hike in the snow or just sit inside with warm tea while you look outside at the snow coming down, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the most important thing when you're learning a piece or an instrument is sitting down and practicing and putting in that time.
Yes.
And that's the same with anything you study, really. You have to put in the learning time and it's not that it gets shorter as you get better because you choose harder pieces.
Mm.
So that time doesn't necessarily diminish. You still need to put in the time, the butt on the chair time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and just do it no matter what, because the reward of performing at a level with all these other wonderful people who have done the same thing, right? It's
Right.
just there's nothing like it. There's just
And
nothing.
when you're performing with these other people who have done that work too, it's almost like a support group or something. Like we all know what it took to get where we are,
Mm.
Yeah,
and we all respect each other's efforts and work, and know what to expect from each other. And so it's a really cool club to be in. But that like you said, that holds true in any field. If you don't learn how to do the work, then you cannot be an electrician. If you don't
Right.
learn how to do the work, you cannot be a surgeon. You can't be an accountant. You can't be
Yeah.
anything if you don't learn how to do the work behind the scenes. And for musicians, especially orchestral instruments or jazz rock blues instruments, for the most part, we're usually extroverts, and so we like to be around other people, or not even like to be, we get energy from other people, and we get depleted by being alone. And so we have to really work hard during that depletion phase to remember that we get the energized phase because of it. It's very difficult. The introverts that I know are the opposite.
Oh.
They can practice the piano. A lot of them are pianists, and they can practice all day, and they're so energized. But doing any concertizing or even chamber work can be very exhausting for them. So it's the universe set us up so that it's hard for either of us to be able to be comfortable all the time. But we do learn that the alone time, that hard work, it gets easier to do the hard work. The hardness doesn't get easier, but it gets easier to do it because you know how you know what your process will be. You know what to apply to that. So I know if I'm having a bad tone day, I know what exercises to do to bring that back. So it's not mysterious. I can fix it.
Sure.
And I'm sure that's the same with any plumber. He's got some tool, or she's got some tool that isn't working. She knows what she's going to have to do to get that back up and running so that she can repair this problem, right? So when you first start out, it's all new and it's all hard. I do a lot of teaching, and I've got a bunch of new students this year who are all in sixth grade, and the practicing is the piece that's problematic for them and overwhelming for them, but they haven't had any successes yet.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to say, remember when you got to play that solo, that's what works. They haven't done anything yet. And so it's just this upward struggle. So I always take an opportunity to go back to page one and say, remember just a couple months ago, you couldn't play these notes. Let's play these again. And they're like, oh, it's easy. And I said, it wasn't easy a couple months ago. So we have to keep reminding ourselves of where we came from and where we're heading.
Yeah.
Earlier when you said, to be alone in a room to practice, as an introvert, I thought, oh, wow, that sounds great.
Exactly. Because you would get energized by doing that. It's exhausting for me. It's exhausting for an extrovert to to just have to work alone so much. And it's a very strange field, music, where so much of our time, probably 90% of my time, is alone.
Wow.
It's hard and it's exhausting. And I've had to find tricks for myself to be able to do it well, because otherwise I wouldn't do it. Tom, you might play the piano for 3 hours and lose track of time and then be elated and you give me 40 minutes and I'm going to fall asleep. So I if I'm going to practice for hours a day, I know that my really great limit is 40 minutes. If I do 40-minute chunks a whole bunch of times a day, then I'll be fine. But if I try to do what my teacher told me when I was a kid, where you have to sit there and practice the whole time, that's why I hated it so much, because I couldn't. I would literally fall asleep. I just hard, and it was too exhausting. And so I just practice all the time. It's all makes it easier in between everything. After this, I'll go, can you see my flute? It's right there on the flute stand right there. So after this, I'll practice before I put the flute away. And that's how I get it in.
Yeah, but that makes sense, right? With any chore too. If you do, this is going to sound funny, but when my children were younger, I subscribed to Fly Lady because I needed to do chores in the house and get things done. And who wants to sit around and clean all day? I mean, I have friends who, like, Saturday morning, the whole family sits there and cleans the house. Oh my God, I thought I would never do that. But I mean, her philosophy was like, do something that's going to take 5 minutes and just do it, and then go and do something else and come and find another 5 minutes. Just do little pieces at a time. And that's really what you're talking about too. You're taking your optimum time is 40 minutes. So you practice for 40 minutes and then you talk to us for a while, or you practice for 40 minutes and then maybe you go for a walk in the woods with your dog, and that balance being able to acknowledge that you need a balance and to put a balance together that works positively for you, that's wonderful. What a gift, Trisha.
Yeah.
That's a real gift.
That's I'm also a business coach for creative people,
Oh.
and that's one of the things that makes me crazy is that people tell you there's one way to do it and you have to do it their way. And so, when I was growing up, if you're not sitting there practicing for 3 hours, like the magic number was 3 hours. If you're not practicing for 3 hours, and who has a 3 hour window?
Yeah.
Right? Like, when does a teenager have a 3 hour window? Whereas if they're a morning person, there are teens who are morning persons. My teens who do that, they do their embouchure exercises before they go to school. It takes them 15 minutes at the most, right? And now they've played and they've done some exercises. So then if they have a study in the middle of the day, they can go practice again for another chunk. And then when they get home from school, they can practice a little bit before they do their homework or activities. And then later in the evening, they can practice again. And so their parents, when they first meet me, and I'm explaining that we have to set it up in a way that will be great for your kid, they have to learn how they work. The parents are like, aren't they supposed to sit there for an hour and practice? And I'm like, if that works for them, sure, but no. No. And there's no sixth grader who's going to be able to do that. When I tell a sixth grader that they can practice for 10 minutes, they get all excited. And I say, just do it 3 times. And 10 minutes is so easy. And I have them attach it to things. Like, I have all these tricks, but with my creative clients, they want to have a business doing what they do. They want to sell their mugs or their jewelry. And, but they're told that to run a business, they have to put in 40 hours at business. And I'm like, you can't. We have to find another way to do it. And so finding out, knowing how you work and what will work for you as a musician or a veterinarian or whatever you're doing is really important, and it's not taught. So somehow I figured it out as I was growing up. And honestly, my mom always said, listen to your body, listen to your body. She talked about that in a lot of different ways. And she was an extreme introvert. So it was really interesting because I got to learn a lot about energy levels and how different people have different needs. And I understood, like, my mom was an extreme introvert, but she loved people. And so she would go, to church or something and come home exhausted. If I went to church with her, I'd come home flying, right? And she'd have to go sit alone in a room for a little while. And she'd come out singing a Gloria or something at the top of her lungs, all reinvigorated. And so I understood that people are very different from each other. And we have to respect our own needs when it comes to how to be most successful and how to reach the goals that you're trying to reach.
I actually, when you said earlier about the teens doing the 10, 15-minute aperture exercises in the morning. Embouchure, I'm sorry. Embouchure. What struck me about that is that they've set up to remember flute and carry flute all through their day. There's this little piece, and they've set themselves up for this wonderful moment that's going to resonate with them throughout the day, even if they don't have a study to pick up their flute again until like maybe after dinner, but they're still carrying that essence with them. It doesn't go away. And then they don't feel bad. Also, there's no guilt. I've done this already, I can go on.
Yeah.
It's like
that's a beautiful point, because it's so true. I love that you said there's no guilt. They're not walking around going, oh my gosh, I have to do this practice project. I have so much. Instead, they can already check off a box. I've practiced. It's also breathing. This is a wind instrument. So they started their day with breathing and focus and listening, right? There's so many activities in the embouchure exercises. So you're fixing your tone. So you're really locked in on the universe, I guess. You're breathing, you're listening, you're critiquing, and you're working on these muscles. And then they go on their day. So I like how you said that they pull it, it ends up setting them up for the whole day. Sort of like if you, I jump rope in the morning, and if I don't jump rope in the morning, then I notice for the rest of the day, maybe I feel a little, I don't know, tired, or just, if I jump rope in the morning, then I feel different all day. I feel like I've started with an energy level, that a fitness level that feels good, and I feel better throughout the day. Same thing, like you just said, with the flute, with the kids who are able to do that in the morning. They don't. It's not a daunting task anymore. I already did it. I already did
Right.
that. So now I can just do some more. It's easier to do more. And if if everything else fails and they don't end up being able to practice later that day, they did practice in the morning, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I usually do yoga first thing in the morning too. Like you jump rope, I do yoga at 25-minute morning routine. And actually, when we travel, which we do often, I wind up doing it before I go to bed because to do it before I get in the car doesn't work with all the other things. And then it's actually the same thing. Either I carry that wonderfulness with me throughout the day, or I know this is going to be my reward for traveling and sitting in the car and walking the dog through Love's or Home Depot or wherever we can find, and I'll have this nice, relaxing thing before I go to bed in wherever I am. And it's just having those little cues for yourself.
Right, right. You said cues. When I have students, like right now, I have a little fleet of sixth grade students who are having a hard time, practicing, and there's a learning curve for the parents as well. How are we gonna make this work? And so the first thing I do with them who are struggling, some of them are all excited to practice, and for some reason they practice. They're strange. The other ones, though, the other ones, though, I encourage attaching it to something you do every day. And they're like, I said, what do you do every day? And they're like, oh, I don't know. It takes them a few minutes to come up with something like brushing my teeth. And if they can't come up with anything, I say, so do you brush your teeth every day? And they're like, well, yes. They gross out. And I'm like, yeah. So what if right after you brush your teeth, you practice your long tones right afterwards? So you brush your teeth and practice your long tones. And I said, then it'll be part of your routine, and you'll start to remember, I just brushed my teeth, I have to do my long tones. And so we work on language surrounding that. We tell the parent, this is the goal, this is what we're going to do. And so I say, so tell me what you do every evening. And they said, brush my teeth. I'm like, no, I always brush my teeth, then practice my flute. I always brush my teeth, then do my long tones. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, you have to say it. So they start. And you know what? A couple weeks in, all of a sudden, they're like, I always practice after I brush my teeth. And I'm like, you did it. You got it into a routine.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. We forget for some reason as a culture, I think, how important routine is, and it is, I mean, going to school is a routine, getting up, getting ready for work. We have these routines that are built in that we take for granted. But our whole day is really like that. And it's a
Mhm.
good thing. And as a sole proprietor, which I've been for decades, and a homeschooling parent too, there's routines and schedules, and we flourish when we have that because it makes everything easy. There's no
Yeah,
guesswork, right? The decisions have already been made. It's Tuesday,
right,
I have my flute lesson. It's brush my teeth, I'm going to practice.
right, exactly. Yeah, and that's one of the ways that I've gotten my practicing done all these years is like one of my routines is if a student cancels a flute lesson, so they've paid for that time. So here I am teaching flute lessons, and somebody canceled. My very important rule to myself is if someone cancels, I will practice for the length of that student's lesson. So I always practice, and I can say it like that. I always practice during a student's canceled lesson. And that gets me extra time, right? I'm
Right.
an extrovert, and I might choose to not do that. So what works for me is that I've got student. Now I'm high energy. Someone's not coming. I can practice, and then a student comes, and the rest of the students come. It works out great, and it usually adds, maybe a couple of hours a week to my practice time, which is something that I rely on a bit. I started doing that years ago, and it works really, really well because I get more time in, but I don't have to plan it. I don't have to schedule it. I don't have to think about it. I just have a rule. Oh, Nick cancels, I'm practicing during his lesson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's also a gift to yourself.
Right.
We don't
Right.
really sometimes, and then it's not wasted time either, right? We all have these things we're like, oh, I just wasted that hour I had. I could have done something useful. You've worked in that really well.
Yeah, it works great for me. And it's like a sneaky way for me to get more practice time in. I have to trick myself into doing it. And people say, oh, come on, you must love it by now. And I'm like, no, I hate the practice time. I love to play. And so like right now I could pick up my flute and play something and be like, oh, that came out great. Yay. But that's not practicing. That's just playing, right? The
Sure.
practice time is hard work and it it bites. I'll use cleaner language than what came to my mind. It's not it. I don't like it. I appreciate it though, and so but I still. I mean, there's lots of things we appreciate that we might not choose to do. Like there's some certain.
I'm not going to have bagels 3 meals a day, and I'm not going to have strawberry cake every day either, because it
Yeah,
just,
you have to rein yourself in. So and there are plenty of things that would be great for us to do, like maybe going for a run or doing some weight training or something. Maybe those things would be really good for you, but you're not just going to be like, yay, I can lift weights now. So that's how I am with practicing. And so if I trick myself into doing it, if you know you want to do weights twice a week, so you make a weight date with a friend, and you have to, once you know that you're meeting your friend and you're going to work out together, you're not going to not go, right? It makes it
right. There's
more accountable.
accountability then too.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's how I'm accountable to myself. If a student cancels, then I always practice during their lesson.
That is great, Trisha. Thank you so much for speaking to us about this. You've talked to us about one of the fundamentals of being an artist, which is putting in the time you need to study that art and get great at it, which you have done. It's been fascinating and delightful.
Thank you.
If you'd like to hear more from Trisha, please join us for her performance during our September Arts Saturday. Register on Eventbrite. We'd also like to thank our many sponsors for making these programs possible. Without them, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. So please thank them, and also consider, what did I do? I just shared the wrong screen again.
That was
Consider becoming a donor yourself. Now, where is it? It's supposed to be right here. No, it's not coming up
That's
right.
benefactors. We see benefactors.
I'm sorry?
That was the donors.
Well, it doesn't show up on my screen that way. So we'll try it again. Okay, there's the donors for you.
Yep, the donors.
Thank you so much. You can donate by going to drakeatarts.com/donate/. For more information about our Art Saturdays and other programs, you can email us at drakeatarts@gmail.com or go to our website, drakeatarts.com. This and all our programs are featured on and archived on the Drake at Arts YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@drakeatarts. Thank you so much.